Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be going over the latest RCP average polling data in the 2024 presidential election, including third-party candidates in a Trump and Harris matchup scenario. But before we get started, make sure you guys are subscribed, click the bell so you don't miss out on my content, press the like button, give this video a thumbs up. Also, we have memberships. You can find a link to that in the description section if you are interested. Now back to the topic of today's video. I'm going to be filling out the electoral map between Harris and Donald Trump. Obviously, according to the RCP latest polling averages, because we do have a few new polls from the swing and important battleground states that could ultimately decide the winner of this election. So we're going to start off with the West Coast, and we'll make our way up eventually to some of these northeastern states. So starting off with the state of Nevada. This is an important battleground state, obviously, but Kamala can afford to lose it but still win the election if she gets those Rust Belt states. So it's not a must-win for her, and it's also not a must-win for Donald Trump, as he lost it in 2016, but still winded up winning the election. And also, Hillary Clinton won the popular vote, by the way, by a couple points, and he still won the election. So even if Harris may be up by, 1 to 2 points according to the polls, that still might not be enough for her to actually win the election, and 2016 was a great example for that. And the latest poll from the Insider Advantage shows that Donald Trump has a 10-point lead. Yes, you are seeing this correctly. A 10% lead in the state of Nevada out of all states, guys. This looks like a solid red state for Donald Trump. Obviously, when you average it out, it turns out to be a likely margin, and this is conducted in this month, July, from the 15th all the way through the 16th, with 800 likely voters. And Donald Trump has a 10-point lead, guys. A solid margin, or when you average it out, it's actually likely from the other polls, but they were from a long time ago. But still doesn't matter. The fact that Trump is up by 10 in a state that usually votes blue on the general election level is not good news for Kamala Harris. And I think if this ends up happening, it's probably because Trump flipped Washoe County, as well as he run up the score in Clark County in the Vegas area among Hispanic voters. That would be key to his victory in this state. And now we're going to move on to the Sunbelt state of Arizona. This is a border state. Obviously, immigration is a key important issue, and Kamala Harris is no match compared to Donald Trump when it comes to the border. So we have 3 new polls from this month, July. The Hill and Emerson College show Donald Trump with an exact 5% lead in the state of Arizona, according to 800 registered voters. And the one before that from the Insider Advantage also has Donald Trump up, but by 6 this time. So his numbers actually keep going up when you actually average these out. And so Donald Trump on average has a 6.4% lead in the Sunbelt state of Arizona. Also, Republicans are gaining in terms of new registered voters. I believe they lead by over 200,000, actually almost 300,000 in terms of voter registration, which is very important. So that's arguably a lean to likely margin. We'll be, leaving it likely for now. And for this, in order to happen, I believe Donald Trump would obviously need to flip Maricopa County, and that would be key to his victory. Also improve among Hispanic voters, which it looks like he is, according to these latest polls conducted from this month between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. And now we move on to the next state. There's a lot of neocons, the Establishment Party of Arizona, and also the McCain-style voters, the Mitt Romneys of the Republican Party in Arizona, that went out for Biden in 2020 because they didn't like how Donald Trump obviously bashed John McCain. I believe Donald Trump can win them over this time around. Now we move on to the next state. So as for Florida, we only have one actual poll between a Harris and Trump matchup, and it shows that Donald Trump has an 8% advantage in this state. He's at 47% to Kamala Harris's 39%, with 572 likely voters from July 22nd to the 24th from the Telegraph. This is very recent, and so that's going to be considered a likely margin. And for order this to happen, which it probably will, as we saw Ron DeSantis had in a standing victory in the 2022 midterms, he flipped Miami-Dade County from blue to red, and even Marco Rubio, who is someone obviously less popular, had almost like 13%. He did get double digits, so why not the same thing happen to Donald Trump? Obviously, Trump would probably perform better among Hispanic voters, Cuban Americans specifically. They're really shifting towards the right in this state. And now we move on to the deep southern state of Georgia, which Trump must flip in order to win this election. Maybe Kamala Harris does have a shot, maybe higher than Joe Biden, because she can maybe run up the score, you can argue, in Atlanta, the suburbs, and the metropolitan area. That's very important if she wants to hold the state for the Democratic column obviously, but this is more than likely going to flip for Donald Trump according to the polls. Let's check that out. So according to the Real Clear Politics polling averages, Donald Trump has a 4.5% lead in the state of Georgia. This is a massive improvement from where we were 4 years ago, as this state had a 6-point swing to the left in favor of Joe Biden. And basically you have five polls from this month recently between a Harris and Trump rematch without third-party candidates, obviously. The Hill and Emerson College shows Donald Trump with a 2% lead in the state of Georgia, which is not really surprising at all, and that's not actually good. The thing that's really swaying this is Atlanta Insider Advantage has Donald Trump with a 10-point advantage. So I can say that maybe Trump is being overestimated, which I believe he is, and you can also make that argument as well. So maybe he will narrowly win this at the end of the day. I do think this is actually going to be closer. I do think Harris does perform better than Joe Biden in Georgia. But according to the averages, because that poll right here that shows Trump up by 10 is really swinging this, which in my opinion is not that realistic because the majority of polls has it under 5% actually. Trump's going to win this state by a lean margin in 2024. And most polls actually show Donald Trump getting nearly 20% with the black vote. That may seem low, but it's actually more than enough to win a state, especially like Georgia in 2024. And now we move on to the next state. We do have one new poll from the state of North Carolina from the Telegraph from July 22nd to the 24th, which shows Donald Trump with a 3% lead in the state of North Carolina. So she is performing better than Joe Biden because on average, Donald Trump was beating Joe Biden by roughly 7 points in North Carolina. So that's roughly a 4% shift to the left. So Kamala Harris does perform slightly better than someone like Joe Biden. So maybe you can say she is a better replacement, but still at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Trump is going to win this state by a lean margin. This state's actually getting better, believe it or not, because when you had both Arizona and Georgia flip to Joe Biden in 2020, that election, North Carolina did the exact opposite, and it stayed red for Donald Trump, which goes to show you how much more of a red state in terms of the general election, not the governorship or the Senate, but in the general election, North Carolina is more than Georgia or even Arizona is. And now we move on to the state of Virginia. And as for the state of Virginia, Donald Trump is actually trailing Kamala Harris according to the New York Times and Siena College as of July 9th and through the 12th from this poll. Kamala Harris has a 5% lead. She's at 49% to Donald Trump's 44%. And you can tell that this is a major, vast improvement from where Joe Biden was polling at, in which Donald Trump was actually beating Joe Biden according to the RCP average. And now this is a roughly 4-point shift to the left in favor of Kamala Harris. And this is according to 661 likely voters. Obviously, that sample size is not really that big, so maybe this might not be accurate, but still, that's going to be a lean margin for the Vice President, Kamala. And now we move on to some of these Rust Belt states, starting off with Minnesota. So as you can see right here, Vice President Kamala Harris has a 6% advantage in the state of Minnesota. Now, Biden was actually losing to Donald Trump, according to the RCP averages in some polls. So this is a vast improvement or replacement for Kamala Harris. She's up by 6 according to Fox News as of July 22nd to the 24th, according to 1,071 registered voters. She has 52% of the overall vote to Donald Trump's 46% when you do not include third-party candidates. So this is actually considered a likely margin. These are good numbers for Kamala Harris, considering that Joe Biden was, performing way worse than her in some of these states, especially in Minnesota included as well. And this is a state that Joe Biden won by 7 points just 4 years ago. A lot of that had to do with BLM, obviously what happened to George Floyd. That's what really pushed those suburbs here in Minneapolis to the left. And he had that momentum, but Democrats don't anymore. But still, I think someone like Kamala Harris is probably better than Joe Biden to actually end up winning this state. This is a major improvement for the replacement of Joe Biden to Kamala Harris. She's obviously polling better than him in Minnesota. And now we move on to the next state. And now as for the state of Wisconsin, in this 5-way race, when you include the third-party candidates, RFK, Cornel West, and Jill Stein, we actually have 4 new polls, all of them coming in from this month of July. Starting with Fox News, Donald Trump has a 1% lead in the state of Wisconsin. Keep in mind, this overestimated Joe Biden by 6 points just 4 years ago. So if you apply the polling error, realistically, Trump has a much larger lead than just that. The Hill and Emerson College shows that it is a dead tie at 47 to 47%. And then PPPD actually shows Donald Trump up by a 1 point lead, and obviously the poll before that also, he is up by 1%. So when you average that out, on average, Donald Trump's lead is actually at 0.7%, which is his exact victory from 2016. So this is actually going to be considered a tilt margin because it is slightly under a percentage point. Now, for Donald Trump to flip this state, obviously he needs 20,000 votes, and that's all it takes. And I think he can do exactly that. I think if he's able to run up the numbers in some of these stronghold Republican counties like Green Bay and ensure Kamala Harris does not have a strong performance in Milwaukee, and also he needs to flip Door County, I think he's able to flip this state. And now we move on to the next state of Michigan. According to the RCP averages, Donald Trump has an exact lead of 1 percentage point in the state of Michigan, 47.7%, to Kamala Harris's 46.7%. We actually have 3 brand new polls from Fox News, The Hill, Emerson College that shows Donald Trump either tied or leading Vice President Kamala Harris. This is also, just like Wisconsin, going to be considered a tilt margin. Now, keep in mind that 100,000 people voted uncommitted in the Democratic primaries. Now, that was against Joe Biden, not Kamala Harris. So you can argue that that does not count. And also, Donald Trump, who's not the incumbent, by the way, received more votes in the Michigan primaries than Joe Biden. And supposedly, Detroit and the suburbs here, especially women voters, are really trending towards the left in favor of Democrats. But that may not be the case according to these polls. They say otherwise. So Donald Trump is the narrow victor in this state. It's going to come down to obviously the woman vote. If Kamala Harris somehow has the victory in this state, it's probably because she gets a lot of women turnout that can really push her over the finish line, as this was the bluest Rust Belt state of the 3 back in 2020, by the way, and Wisconsin was the reddest. And now we move on to the state of Pennsylvania, in which Trump was really shot in this state, so maybe that can actually boost his turnout. And Pittsburgh, because Pittsburgh is next to Butler County, obviously. We actually have 6 new polls from this month of July from the state of Pennsylvania, so this could really help us. Starting off with Fox News, Donald Trump is tied with Kamala Harris at 49% according to 1,034 registered voters. And then The Hill and Emerson College shows Donald Trump with a 2% lead in this state. And then you have some of these other polls which shows Donald Trump with greater leads than just that. So overall, on average, he's up by 3 percentage points, and they are saying this will be the reddest Rust Belt state. Pennsylvania, he would win it by a lean margin. I have to disagree. In my opinion, I do think Wisconsin is the reddest, as it was in 2020 and in 2016. And even with Obama, I believe Wisconsin was the one that least voted towards the left, and Michigan arguably was the bluest. But all of a sudden, they're saying Pennsylvania is the reddest. Well, maybe because he actually got shot. So maybe that would be true. Maybe I'm wrong. And now for this to take place, Donald Trump winning the state by 3 points, I think obviously, first of all, he would have to flip Erie County. This is a tipping point county that Trump won in 2016, but Biden won, or he flipped in 2020. And he would have to run up the numbers in Centre County and also ensure that Kamala Harris does not get in par with Joe Biden and some of these stronghold Democratic counties like Philadelphia and the Pittsburgh suburbs, as well as flip Northampton County, which only went to Biden by 0.7% last time. So Donald Trump was more than likely going to flip Northampton County. And it's going to come down to those blue-collar workers, obviously college-educated voters, which usually goes in favor of the Democratic voters. I just can't see in reality or realistically that Kamala Harris can do good with college-educated voters. I just can't see that. So Donald Trump is going to win Pennsylvania, according to the RCP averages, by 3 percentage points. And now we move on to the last and final state, New Hampshire, before we end off this video with its 4 electoral votes. So we actually have 2 brand new polls from the state of New Hampshire, in which shows Kamala Harris defeating Donald Trump by a great victory of 6 to 7 points in the state of New Hampshire. And one poll actually has 2,083 people, sample size, registered voters, which is pretty, I would say, pretty good in my opinion. So she actually is leading Trump by a likely margin. This swing state is actually one of the more bluer ones, believe it or not. Obviously, this state has a lot of college-educated voters, so maybe what I said earlier was wrong. Maybe Kamala Harris can do good among that group. So at the end of the day, Trump's going to win with 312 electoral votes for his second and final term to Kamala Harris's 226, according to the latest RCP polling averages between Harris and Trump matchup, and some states even included the third-party candidates. So let me know your overall thoughts and opinions in the map in the comment section down below. Do you agree or disagree, and why? And one last final reminder is to subscribe, click the bell so you don't miss out on my content. Press the like button, give this video a thumbs up. And we have memberships. Don't forget to find a link to that in the description section if you are interested. And also, Kamala Harris is winning the state of Maine, by the way, by 8 percentage points. So we did fill that in likely, as well as Nebraska. Second is slightly closer by a lean margin, in case you were just wondering. So that's pretty much it. Thank you everyone for watching.